All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about a law that politicians on all sides are, well, desperate to change. A law that our source for this explainer says is literally the foundation of the internet as we know it.
And here they are. These are the 26 words at the very heart of this huge debate. They come from Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act. Now, I know they sound kind of dry, a little bit like legal jargon, right? But believe it or not, these words are basically the engine that lets the entire social web function.
That is the big question, isn't it? And to really understand the fight that's happening today, we've got to go back in time, back to the internet's chaotic childhood in the early 1990s. This was a time when the law had absolutely no idea what to do with this wild new frontier.
So, let's set the scene. Before we had web browsers, the internet was this small, text-based world. You had services like CompuServe and Prodigy. The problem? The courts were trying to cram this brand new technology into old, frankly, outdated legal boxes.
I mean, just think about this. Fewer than 1% of American households were online back then. It was this tiny new space, and the law was totally stumped. It kept trying to figure out, okay, are these online forums like a newspaper, or are they more like a bookstore? And this confusion led to two court rulings that were complete opposites, creating an absolute crisis.
And this created a fascinating and frankly impossible legal trap. You had CompuServe, right? They didn't moderate user content, and the court said, you're good, you're not liable. But then you have Prodigy, who tried to do the right thing. They wanted to be family-friendly, so they removed some spam and offensive stuff. And what happened? The court punished them for it. The logic was, because Prodigy tried to moderate, it was now legally responsible for everything on its platform.
So you see the problem? Online services were stuck with this miserable choice. Option A, allow a total free-for-all with zero moderation. Or, Option B, try to moderate anything and suddenly become legally responsible for every single post, every comment, every message from every user. You know what the safest legal option was? To just ignore all the abuse. What a mess.
This legal chaos really threatened the whole idea of online communities. I mean, who would want to host a discussion forum under those rules? The situation was so obviously broken that it pushed two congressmen from opposite sides of the aisle to step in and do something.
These two guys, a Republican and a Democrat, both looked at this and agreed the courts were forcing platforms into a no-win situation. In the words of Congressman Cox, the rulings were surprisingly stupid. So they set out to create a new rule for this new medium, one that would let the internet grow without forcing companies into that terrible choice.
The law they came up with brilliantly solved both sides of the problem. First, you've got the liability shield. It's simple. The person who posts the content is responsible, not the website hosting it. And second, you have the Good Samaritan provision. This part explicitly says, hey, platforms, you can clean up your sites. You can remove the bad stuff without being punished for it.
And just look at how popular this idea was back then. I mean, this was not controversial. The law passed with this incredible bipartisan support, 420 to 4. It really seemed like pretty much everyone agreed this was just a common sense way to let speech flourish online.
Okay, so the law gets signed in 1996, but of course, that's never the end of the story, right? Section 230 was almost immediately put to the test in court, and a series of really important cases would go on to shape how it was applied for decades, pretty much defining the boundaries of our digital world.
So this timeline shows you some of the key moments where the courts really solidified the law's powerful protections, but also started to draw some lines in the sand. Let's zoom in on one of the most important early cases, because it's a big one.
So in this case, Zoran v. AOL, a guy was being harassed by anonymous posts on AOL. And he argued, reasonably enough, that once he told AOL about the posts, they should be on the hook. But the court disagreed. They said that if platforms became liable just by being notified, it would create an impossible situation. They'd have to either shut down user speech entirely or face a flood of endless lawsuits. Our source argues this was a critical decision that protected a platform's ability to moderate thoughtfully instead of just censoring at the drop of a hat.
For years and years, this law was just the quiet, unchallenged bedrock of the social web. But then, starting around the mid-2010s, with social media giants getting bigger and the political climate changing, that consensus just started to completely fall apart. And here's where we are today. The law is getting attacked from both sides, but for totally different reasons. This is what our source calls the techlash. On one side, you have the claim that it allows for unfair censorship. And on the other, you have the claim that it allows harmful content to spread like wildfire.
Now, you might be thinking this is all about big tech,
But the source really argues that Section 230 is what lets everyday people like you and me interact online. It's the reason you can post a restaurant review, or comment on a news article, or join a fan forum, all without the owner of that website getting sued into oblivion.
So the source for this explainer leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question. If we weaken this law, could we accidentally raise the legal barrier so high that only the absolute biggest tech companies, the ones with armies of lawyers, could even hope to survive? It's a bit of an irony, right? The effort to rein in big tech could end up hurting the very users and competitors the reformers say they want to protect, cementing the power of the few.